In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some NHL rumors of things that we might see in the offseason, including some trades as well as some potential signings here as well. We're mainly focusing on some teams like the Anaheim Ducks, Columbus Blue Jackets, Philadelphia Flyers, and a few others as well. We'll get into all that coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. Let's get started here by discussing the Anaheim Ducks. Now, as we know, the Ducks have not had a great season. They saw their coach be relieved of his duties. Randy Carlyle was fired. GM Bob Murray has since taken over, has been behind the bench here. Murray's been trying to get a lot more playing time for a lot of his younger players who've been playing relatively well, and there is a lot of talk going on through the NHL rumor mill that the Anaheim Ducks might be trying to find some ways over the offseason to shed some of their veterans and make more room for some of their younger players. Obviously, they need to get younger, faster, more skilled, and they do have a lot of those right players that fit that mold in their system already. It's just a matter of getting them enough playing time and play them in the right roles in the right positions here within their organization. They've seen players like Sam Steele, Max Jones, and Troy Terry have pretty good development this year within the Anaheim system. We've seen Isaac Lunderstrom have a pretty good start to his year between his time in Anaheim and San Diego, plus playing over in Sweden as well. Maxime Comtois is on his way up after having a solid start to his rookie campaign. He went back to junior. So all these guys coming into the system certainly have a bright future here with the Anaheim Ducks. There's been some talk they may look to trade veteran Adam Henrique, who just signed a 5-year contract extension just in the past year or so. That might prove difficult to actually trade, but I know it's something that the Ducks seem to be willing to consider. And there's also a lot of talk around Ryan Kessler. Is he even going to be able to play this year coming up? I mean, obviously coming into this season, there was a lot of talk as well. He did miss some significant time, but he has played a fair bit as well. And next year wouldn't be a complete shocker to see him maybe shut down, put on LTIR to kind of free up some cap space here for the Ducks. It certainly would go a long way in helping them create some more cap space and roster space here for some of these younger players. But do look for the Anaheim Ducks to continue making some trades, shake things up here, and moving out some veterans and making room for some of your younger players is certainly the direction they're going. More than likely, the next head coach for the Ducks will be Dallas Eakins, who's coaching their American Hockey League affiliate in San Diego, and many of the younger players have already used to having him as a coach. They already have an established relationship with him, and he's proven to be very good with the younger guys. So certainly it makes a lot of sense that he more than likely is the next coach of the Anaheim Ducks at the NHL level. Now jumping over and taking a look at the Columbus Blue Jackets, obviously they made a lot of moves at the deadline, picking up some pretty significant pieces, but so far things haven't really worked out. Now they did have a pretty big win against Montreal the other night, and so far look like they have a pretty decent chance of getting into the playoffs now. That win over Montreal went a long way to making that happen. However, they more than likely enter the playoffs as the bottom seed and play Tampa Bay, and it's going to prove to be a very difficult task, and will have a very hard time getting out of the first round. Tampa has dominated Columbus during their regular season series. Of course, I realize that doesn't always play a big role in the playoffs. By the time we get there, teams certainly change a lot. There's injuries, whatnot, but Tampa Bay is just too much of a really strong team, quite a juggernaut over there. I would imagine the Blue Jackets will likely struggle to really get much going against that team. So heading into next season, the Columbus Blue Jackets might look a completely different team here. I mean, a lot of these guys that they acquired, plus they already had some of their own guys that were pending UFAs, are pretty big names. I mean, if they see exits from Sergei Bobrovsky, as well as Artemi Panarin, possibly Matt Duchene, Ryan Dzingel, Adam McQuaid, it's no guarantee any of these guys are going to stick around. They gave up a lot in order to bring some of these guys in at the deadline, and if they don't go very far in the playoffs, it's really going to be all for nothing here, in my opinion, and it certainly is going to cause a lot of these guys to maybe not want to stick around if they're not confident they can win with that organization. At the same time, though, it's also going to cause teams to maybe ponder how they handle trade deadlines in the future. When you see a team like Columbus go all in and acquire all these big names just to fall flat here, it certainly could cause a lot of other teams to be gun shy in the future, which in a way is kind of a shame. The trade deadline is certainly a very fun time around the NHL. Lots of change happening, lots of players on the move, and it might cause teams to not want to pay a big price tag in order to mortgage their future here for a victory in the playoffs now, when they see things like this not go overly well. So not only could the Blue Jackets look really, really different next year with many of these guys walking via free agency, but we might see a lot of teams take a very different approach at the deadline next season. Now, jumping over and talking a look here at the Philadelphia Flyers, obviously they're not going to be a playoff team this year, to kind of taking a step back overall the team's development, but at the same time, they're also a team that's gone through a fair bit of change this year. They are expected to be looking on the market to add some veteran presence here on the D-core during the offseason. They've seen some pretty good development here from guys like Travis Sanheim. Philippe Myers as well has had a pretty good development year as well. Myers finally got more of a taste of the NHL and hasn't really looked out of place. And I wouldn't completely rule out the possibility, and we got into this before, about maybe trading defenseman Shane Gostisbehere. Gostisbehere and Provorov certainly have taken some steps back this year. Gostisbehere especially, at times has frustrated the coaching staff with his defensive play. There's been certainly some times lately where his ice time has been down as well. It wouldn't be a complete shocker. I'm not suggesting that he's going to be traded for sure. I don't have any information to say that he definitely would be, or any rumors linking him to other teams. But just based on the fact on how that D-core has kind of been molded up here, they've seen some good development from some other guys. Wouldn't be a complete shocker is all I'm saying. I do think it's something they're at least going to consider, but of course has to be the right deal. A deal like that very well could be something we see happen at the first round of the NHL draft here in June. So certainly keep your eyes open for that. But the Flyers likely looking to add a bit more veteran presence on the D-core to help some of these younger guys out that are likely going to be regular members of the D-core here next year, just to kind of insulate them a little bit going forward. Now, jumping over to talk about the Detroit Red Wings, it is expected that they're likely going to be announcing over the next couple of days that head coach Jeff Blashil is going to get a contract extension for at least one, probably a multi-year deal, though, is what's being reported. This does come to some at least as a little bit of a surprise. I know at the end of last season, there wasn't clear between him and Ken Holland if they'd be back this year or what the plan was going to be. Would the Red Wings go in a different direction? However, both guys were named to come back here for this season. Obviously, things haven't gone all that great this year, but at the same time, the expectations weren't overly high as well. They're certainly going through a rebuild. I think they drafted well at last year's draft. Obviously, the Red Wings still have a lot of confidence in Jeff Blashil that he's the right coach to work with a lot of these younger guys to help them develop as they go through this rebuild here. So I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts down below. Do you think Jeff Blashil is the right coach in Detroit to take them back through this rebuild? And the other question, too, that you can't help but wonder with Detroit, there's been a lot of talk that maybe Kenny Holland would be on his way out this summer, either move into a president of hockey operations role, maybe even take a job with a team like Seattle, for example, and that maybe Steve Yzerman would come back to Detroit. As we know, he's been with the Tampa Bay Lightning organization for a long time, was GM, recently stepped aside. He still lives in the Detroit area, and then it would certainly work for family reasons, for a lot better for him to be able to work with the Red Wings. There's been a lot of talk around that. So if Yzerman were to return, wouldn't you think he'd want to have some say in the coach? It seems a little bit odd to me that if Holland was looking at leaving, that maybe he'd leave that decision up to the next GM or president of hockey operations. But I guess time will tell. I know we've seen Elliot Friedman say on his 31 Thoughts podcast that he feels that if Yzerman were to return, that he would be more of a president of hockey operations type of job, and that he'd likely bring one of his good friends and somebody who's worked in the hockey world for a long time, Pat Verbeek, to be the general manager. But I guess time will tell on that, but it looks as though Holland very well might be staying as well. But we'll see what happens here as we head into the offseason. There has been a lot of links of him to the Seattle franchise, but I do think he's one of many guys they would probably consider for that position. There's lots of other good candidates out there as well. So we'll see what happens with Holland in Detroit and whether or not Yzerman makes his way back or not. There's a few players playing over in the SHL right now, garnering a lot of attention. Might be looking to sign as free agents and come over to the NHL next year. I know the Flames and Senators are a couple teams, but linked to a couple of these guys. Joaquin Nygaard is one of them. Lundstrom, a defenseman, who's one of his teammates as well, is another player getting a lot of attention as well. So certainly a couple other guys to add to the free agent mix that might be coming over to North America to potentially play in the NHL next year. With regards to Nygaard, I know the Flames and Senators have been reported to both be heavily interested and been doing a lot of discussions around possibly bringing him over. So we'll see what happens, but a couple other guys here to keep your eyes on during the offseason. The college free agent signing season is certainly not over. One player to keep your eye on is Nico Sturm, who's apparently getting a lot of interest from the LA Kings. The Kings have been really interested in this player, but they're kind of waiting for things to wrap up for his season so they can determine where he signs. Obviously, he was listed in one of the videos we made earlier on, talking with some of the top college free agents who could be signed by NHL clubs here as their seasons wrap up. And apparently the Kings are the most interested, so we'll see if he can be landed there or what happens with his future, but he likely will get an NHL contract. Just a matter of who. But right now the Kings appear to have the most interest. Speaking of college players, let's discuss Adam Fox here right now for a moment. Obviously, he's still playing right now with Harvard. Unclear right now if he returns for his senior year or if he signs with the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, of course, Fox was a member of the Flames organization, was traded this past summer as part of that Dougie Hamilton, Michael Furlan, Noah Hannafin trade that happened between the Flames and the Hurricanes at the draft. Obviously, the Flames were not confident they could sign this player, which is why they were willing to include him. The Carolina Hurricanes obviously thought they might have a better chance at getting him signed, which is kind of why they pulled the trigger here. I can see why they'd want him. He's certainly a terrific young defenseman with a big upside, so having a fantastic year for Harvard this year, one of the top defensemen in college hockey. But right now, it's really unclear if they're going to be able to sign him. He obviously is looking for an NHL opportunity. The Hurricanes do have a lot of defensemen on their roster. It's kind of a logjam there. It's unclear exactly where they place him in their lineup. But right now, the rumor is that he very well might return for his senior year and then test free agency next year. So if he does, that would certainly be a big blow for the Hurricanes. Obviously, that trade they made, they gave up a fair bit in that deal. And obviously, he was one of the key pieces coming back. So I guess we'll see what happens. There was a recent interview with Fox, and he indicated that his decision had not been made here as of yet. Expected that within 48 hours of his season coming to an end, that he will make his decision, make the announcement, and go from there. Obviously, if he does sign with the Hurricanes, he's likely going to expect them to let him play any of the remaining games that are left and burn a year off his contract. But I guess time will tell, but we'll see if the Hurricanes can get him signed up or not. So that is all your news and notes and all the rumors here for today. So of course, as always, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section. Let me know what you think of these moves that we might see during the offseason, and we can continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel here, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up before you go. I would appreciate it if you did. Thank you very much for watching. We will catch you next time.